The Seattle rain hit my face as I walked down Pine Street, but I barely felt it. My mind was replaying the conversation I just had with Nicole, the words echoing in my head like a broken record. After 10 years of living this double life, everything was finally catching up to me. I thought I was making the right choice by ending things with her, but as I'm writing this now, I realize I was already too late. Let me back up. My name is Matt. I'm 42, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I had it all figured out. I'm a marketing director at a tech firm in Seattle, married to my college sweetheart, Rachel, for 15 years, and we have 2 amazing kids, Emma, 16, and Jake, 14. We live in a beautiful house in Bellevue with a white picket fence, literally. From the outside, we were the perfect American family. But I was living a lie that would eventually destroy everything I thought I was protecting. 10 years ago, at a company retreat in Portland, I met Nicole. She was 27 then, fresh out of business school, ambitious as hell, and absolutely captivating. She had this energy that lit up every room she walked into. I was 32, already feeling like the spark in my marriage had dimmed to a comfortable glow. Rachel and I had fallen into that routine that happens when you're raising young kids and building careers. We were good partners, good parents, but somewhere along the way, we'd stopped being lovers. The affair started innocently enough. Nicole and I were assigned to work on a campaign together, and those late nights at the office turned into drinks, which turned into conversations that went deeper than work. She made me feel alive again, reminded me of who I used to be before mortgages and parent-teacher conferences. The first time we kissed, I told myself it was a mistake. The second time, I told myself it was the last time. By the third time, I'd stopped making excuses. For 10 years, I lived this perfectly compartmentalized life. Monday through Friday, I was Nicole's passionate lover. We'd meet at her apartment, take weekend trips to Vancouver when I told Rachel I was at conferences, steal moments in hotel rooms during actual work trips. With Nicole, I was spontaneous, romantic, the man I used to be. Then I'd come home to Rachel, help with homework, attend soccer games, and play the devoted husband and father. I thought I was protecting my family by keeping these worlds separate. I told myself that what Rachel didn't know couldn't hurt her, that I was actually being a better husband because I was happier. Nicole knew about my family from the beginning, and for years, she seemed content with our arrangement. She was building her career, dating other people occasionally, and our relationship was this perfect escape from reality. But people change. Dreams change.
And Nicole started wanting more. It began about 6 months ago. She started asking questions about my family, about Rachel, about what our future looked like. She'd mentioned seeing couples our age getting married, buying houses together, talking about having kids. I could see it in her eyes. She was no longer satisfied being my secret. She wanted to be my priority. Last month, she started pushing harder. She'd bring up the future in casual conversation, ask when I was going to tell Rachel, suggest that maybe it was time to figure things out. I kept deflecting, changing the subject, but Nicole wasn't backing down. She was 37 now, successful in her own right, and she wanted a real relationship with someone who could give her everything she deserved. 3 weeks ago, she asked me to meet her at our usual coffee shop in Capitol Hill. I knew something was different the moment I walked in. She wasn't smiling, wasn't playing with her hair the way she usually did when she was nervous. She looked determined, almost cold. "Matt, we need to talk," she said, stirring her latte without looking at me. I sat down across from her, already feeling the knot forming in my stomach. "What's going on?" "I can't do this anymore." Her voice was steady, but I could hear the emotion underneath. I'm tired of being your secret. I'm tired of spending holidays alone while you're playing happy family. I'm tired of loving someone who won't choose me. I reached across the table to touch her hand, but she pulled away. Nicole, you know it's complicated. I have kids to think about. And I have a life to think about, she interrupted, her voice rising slightly. I'm 37, Matt. I want to get married. I want to have kids. I want to build a life with someone who actually wants to be with me. The way she said it hit me like a punch to the gut. I realized in that moment how selfish I'd been. I'd been so focused on protecting my comfortable life that I had never considered what I was taking from her. I'm giving you 1 month, she continued, her eyes finally meeting mine. 1 month to decide what you want. Either you tell Rachel about us and we figure out how to build a real relationship, or I'm done. And if you choose to stay with her, I'm going to tell her everything myself. I felt the blood drain from my face. Nicole, you can't. I can and I will. Her voice was firm, final. I've wasted 10 years of my life being your dirty little secret. I won't waste another day. She stood up, left a $10 bill on the table, and walked out without looking back. I sat there for another hour, staring at my untouched coffee, trying to process what had just happened.
My perfectly controlled world was crumbling, and I had exactly 30 days to figure out how to save it. Over the next few weeks, I was a mess. I couldn't concentrate at work, couldn't sleep, couldn't look at Rachel without feeling like the worst person alive. I kept thinking about Nicole's ultimatum, about the choice I had to make. On one hand, I had 15 years of marriage, 2 kids who adored me, and a life that, while not perfect, was stable and comfortable. On the other hand, I had this woman who made me feel alive, who loved me completely, who was asking me to choose her. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized there was no choice at all. I loved my family. I loved Rachel, even if our relationship had become more partnership than passion. I loved my kids more than life itself. I couldn't destroy their world for my own selfish desires. 2 days ago, I made my decision. I called Nicole and asked her to meet me at the coffee shop one more time. She looked beautiful, hope flickering in her eyes when she saw me. I hated myself for what I was about to do. I can't leave them, I said before she could even sit down. I'm sorry, Nicole. I love you, but I can't destroy my family. The hope in her eyes died instantly, replaced by something I'd never seen before, pure hurt mixed with rage. So you're choosing her. I'm choosing my kids, I said, though even as I said it, I knew it sounded like a cop-out. She laughed bitterly. Your kids. Right. And what about me, Matt? What about the 10 years I gave you? What about the life I put on hold for you? I never asked you to put your life on hold. You didn't have to ask, she shouted, drawing stares from other customers. I did it because I loved you, because I believed that someday you'd choose me. I reached for her hand again, but she stood up, backing away from me. Nicole, please, I'm sorry. I know I hurt you, but you have no idea what you've done, she said, her voice deadly quiet. But you will. She walked out, and I knew I'd never see her again. I felt a mix of relief and grief that I couldn't quite process. I'd made the right choice, hadn't I? I'd chosen my family over my selfish desires. I'd protected the people who mattered most. I stopped at the flower shop on the way home and bought Rachel's favorite orchids. I was going to tell her I loved her, remind her why we fell in love in the first place. I was going to be the husband she deserved, the father my kids needed. I was going to fix this. But when I pulled into our driveway, Rachel's car wasn't there. The house was dark, eerily quiet. I used my key to unlock the front door, calling out as I stepped inside. Rachel? Kids? I'm home. Silence. I walked through the house, turning on lights, calling their names. Emma's room was empty, her bed stripped. Jake's room was the same.
I ran to our bedroom, threw open Rachel's closet. Most of her clothes were gone. On the kitchen counter, I found a note in Rachel's handwriting. "Stay at your sister's until you hear from my lawyer. Don't contact us." My hands were shaking as I read it over and over. How could she know? I'd been so careful, so discreet. We'd never been seen together, never left any evidence. I grabbed my phone and called Rachel's number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried Emma's phone. She answered on the third ring. "Dad?" Her voice was cold, distant. "Emma? Sweetheart, what's going on? Where are you?" "We're at Aunt Lisa's." She paused. "We know about Nicole." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What? How do you—" "She came to the house 3 days ago when you were at work." Emma's voice was flat, emotionless. "She told Mom everything, showed her pictures, text messages, told her about all your trips together. She said you'd been lying to us for 10 years. I felt the room spinning around me. "Emma, I can explain." "No, you can't." Now I could hear the anger in her voice. "She had photos of you two together, Dad, at restaurants, at hotels, kissing. She knew things about you that we didn't know. She knew about the scar on your shoulder from when you fell off your bike as a kid. She knew about your favorite book, your favorite movie, things you never shared with us." I closed my eyes, trying to process what she was telling me. Nicole had destroyed everything out of spite, out of revenge for my rejection. "She stood in our living room and told Mom that you'd been living a double life for 10 years, Emma continued. "That you'd chosen her over us, that you were planning to leave us for her." "That's not true," I said desperately. "I chose you. I chose our family. I ended things with her to protect you." "Too late," Emma said quietly. "Jake and I watched Mom break down. We helped her pack. We saw what your lies did to her. And you know what the worst part is? She said she always suspected something but chose to trust you anyway." The line went dead. I tried calling back, but she'd turned off her phone. I tried Jake's number, but he didn't answer. I tried Rachel again, but her voicemail was full. I spent the next 3 days in that empty house, surrounded by the ghosts of my former life. The silence was deafening. I'd come home to recommit to my family, to be the man they deserved, but I was already too late.
Nicole had burned down my world before I'd even realized it was on fire. On the 4th day, a process server showed up at my door. Divorce papers. There was also a restraining order. I wasn't allowed within 500 feet of Rachel or the kids until the custody hearing. My own family had legally barred me from their lives. I moved into a downtown apartment, a sterile 1-bedroom that felt like a prison cell. I threw myself into work, but even that felt hollow. My colleagues knew something was wrong, but I couldn't tell them that I'd destroyed my family for a woman who'd then destroyed me out of revenge. The custody hearing was a nightmare. Rachel looked like a stranger, thinner, harder, with an expression I'd never seen before. She wouldn't look at me, wouldn't acknowledge my presence. Her lawyer painted me as a serial cheater, a man who'd betrayed his family for a decade. They had evidence, photos, credit card statements, hotel receipts that Nicole had provided. I was allowed supervised visits with the kids twice a week, 2 hours each time. Emma was cold and distant during our visits. Jake barely spoke to me. They'd answer my questions with one-word responses, check their phones constantly, count down the minutes until they could leave. I'd try to explain, try to tell them how sorry I was, but they'd just stare at me with these empty expressions. I'd broken their trust so completely that they couldn't even be angry anymore. They were just done. 6 months later, I heard through mutual friends that Rachel had started taking art classes at the community college. She'd always been talented, had studied art before switching to business when we got serious. She'd given up that dream to support my career, to raise our kids. Now she was reclaiming it. I saw her once at the grocery store.
She looked different, lighter somehow. She'd cut her hair, lost weight, and she was smiling at something on her phone. She looked like the girl I'd fallen in love with in college, but also like someone new, someone who'd found herself again. I wanted to approach her, to talk to her, but the restraining order was still in effect. I watched from the next aisle as she shopped, moving with this confidence I hadn't seen in years. She looked free. A few months later, Emma mentioned during one of our awkward visits that Rachel was dating someone, a professor from the community college named David. He taught literature, was kind to the kids, and made Rachel laugh. The way Emma said it, I could tell she liked him. Jake nodded along, saying David was cool and had taken them to a Mariners game. I felt a jealousy so intense it was physically painful. This stranger was living the life I'd thrown away, was making my family happy in ways I'd apparently never managed.
But underneath the jealousy was something else, a strange sense of relief. Rachel deserved someone who would choose her every day, who wouldn't live a double life, who would love her completely. A year after our divorce was finalized, I saw on social media that Rachel and David were engaged. The photos showed her radiant, genuinely happy in a way I couldn't remember seeing in years, maybe ever. She was wearing a simple diamond ring, laughing at something David had said, surrounded by our kids who were smiling real smiles. I stared at those photos for hours, trying to remember if I'd ever made her look that happy. I couldn't. Even in our best moments, there had always been this part of me that was somewhere else, thinking about Nicole, planning our next meeting, living in that other world I'd created. The kids started warming up to me again, slowly. Emma would actually make eye contact during our visits now, tell me about school, about her friends. Jake would show me his drawings, talk about the soccer team he'd joined. They were healing, moving forward. They were resilient in a way I'd never been. But they were different with me now. Polite, careful, like they were visiting a distant relative rather than talking to their father. I'd lost the casual intimacy we'd once shared. I was no longer the person they'd run to with their problems, their triumphs, their secrets. I was just someone they saw twice a week because a judge said they had to. Rachel and David got married in a small ceremony in their backyard. I wasn't invited, obviously, but Emma showed me pictures afterward. Rachel looked stunning in a simple white dress, her face glowing with happiness. David looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. The kids were part of the wedding party, Emma in a soft blue dress, Jake in a tiny tuxedo. They looked like a real family. I realized, watching those photos, that I'd never looked at Rachel the way David was looking at her. I'd loved her, or thought I had, but it had been a comfortable love, a settled love. David loved her like she was a gift, like he couldn't believe his luck. That's what she deserved all along. It's been 2 years now since that day I came home with orchids, thinking I was choosing my family. I've been in therapy, trying to understand how I became the kind of man who could live a double life for 10 years. My therapist says I was compartmentalizing, that I'd convinced myself I was protecting my family, when really I was protecting myself from having to make hard choices. The truth is, I was a coward. I wanted the security and stability of my marriage, but I also wanted the excitement and passion of my affair. I wanted to have it all without considering the cost to anyone else.
I told myself I was being noble by not leaving Rachel, but really I was just being selfish. Nicole never spoke to me again after that day in the coffee shop. I heard she left the company a few months later, took a job in Portland.
I don't know if she's happy now, if she found someone who could give her the life she deserved. I hope she did. She was right to be angry with me, right to want more than I could give her. I just wish she hadn't destroyed my family to get her revenge. But that's on me too. I created the situation that led to that moment. I'd been living on borrowed time for 10 years, and eventually the bill came due. Rachel posts pictures sometimes of her new life with David and the kids. They go on camping trips, visit museums, travel to places I'd never thought to take them. She's opened her own art studio, sells her paintings online. She looks genuinely fulfilled in a way I never saw when we were married. The kids are thriving too. Emma's a senior now, planning to study environmental science in college. Jake's discovered he has a talent for writing, something David encouraged. Both seem happy, stable, loved. They're better off without me as their primary male role model. I still see them twice a week, but our relationship is more like that of a distant uncle than a father. They're polite, they update me on their lives, but I'm not part of their daily world anymore. I missed Jake's first high school dance, Emma's acceptance to her dream college, countless small moments that make up a life. I live alone in my apartment, go to work, come home to silence. I've tried dating, but every relationship feels hollow compared to what I lost. I destroyed the two most important relationships in my life, my marriage and my affair, and I'm not sure I deserve to find love again. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd made different choices, if I'd never started the affair with Nicole, if I'd worked harder to reconnect with Rachel, if I'd been honest about my feelings instead of living a lie. But mostly I try not to think about it. The past is done, and I have to live with the consequences of my choices. I've learned that you can't protect people from the truth forever. Eventually, lies catch up to you, and when they do, they destroy everything you thought you were protecting. I told myself for 10 years that I was being noble, that I was sparing my family pain, but really, I was just being selfish. And in the end, I caused more pain than honesty ever could have. Rachel deserved better than a husband who was only half present, who was always thinking about someone else. Nicole deserved better than a man who would never fully commit to her.
My kids deserved better than a father who would lie to them for 10 years about who he really was. I'm not writing this looking for sympathy or forgiveness. I'm writing it because I need to face the truth about who I was and what I did. I was the villain in my own story, and probably in theirs too. I destroyed my family, not with one moment of weakness, but with 10 years of calculated deception. Was I the asshole? I think I already know the answer to that. But part of me wonders if there's any path to redemption, any way to earn back even a fraction of what I lost. Or if this is simply what I deserve, to live with the consequences of my choices, to watch from the sidelines as the people I love build better lives without me. I guess that's for others to decide. All I know is that I'm finally living with the truth, and it's lonelier than any lie I ever told myself. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life trauma. Got a take on the situation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you.